"Hey, get out of here!" The waiter's harsh voice tore through the cold night air. The boy jumped back, stumbling on the curb and almost falling onto the dirty snow on the sidewalk. The sound of the door slamming shut behind the waiter echoed through the street, mixing with the muffled noise of laughter and clinking cutlery inside. But he didn't run away. He stayed there, motionless, his eyes fixed on the brightly lit window. His fingers trembled inside the torn pockets of his thin jacket. His legs ached from standing too long, but his stomach hurt even more. The cold wasn't even the worst part anymore. It was that raw, dry hunger that made his chest burn, as if it were hollow. Inside, the customers continued their lives. A blonde woman, with a red scarf around her neck, smiled as she received a glass of wine. At the corner table, a group of men in suits toasted, celebrating some victory he would never know. The waiters hurried by, balancing trays with juicy burgers, golden fries, and desserts covered with whipped cream. The boy took a deep breath and stepped forward again, approaching the glass. He rested his forehead on the cold surface. He felt his skin stick for a second and had to pull hard to release it. Inside the restaurant, no one seemed to care. No one, except one man. At the third table by the window near the heater, a man in a dark jacket with a fixed gaze was watching him without hiding it. While the colleagues laughed loudly, making toasts, that man didn't smile, didn't speak, just stared. The boy noticed. Their eyes met. For a second, he froze. He didn't know if he should run, look down, or pretend he hadn't seen anything. But it was too late. If you like hearing real-life stories as touching as this one, don't forget to check if you're already subscribed to the channel so you won't miss any of our emotional stories. The man put his cutlery down on the plate, pushed his chair back, and stood up. The movement made his colleagues pause their laughter for a moment. One of them gestured to call him back, but the man simply raised a hand, asking for silence. The waiter, who minutes before had chased the boy away, widened his eyes when he saw the customer walking towards the door. The entrance bell rang again, this time softly. The man went out. The boy stepped back. Fear tightened his chest. No one had ever done that before. No one. Everyone else just walked past, pretending he was part of the sidewalk, a shadow at the corner, a problem that wasn't theirs. But now, there he was. The man stopped less than a meter away. He took his hands out of his coat pockets and looked the boy up and down. The gaze was serious, impenetrable. Neither anger nor pity, just attention. The boy breathed heavily. The cold cut through, but sweat ran down his back. His heart pounded in his neck, his temples. The man tilted his head slightly to the side, as if analyzing, as if calculating the next move. The boy bit his lip. He was ready to run, but before he could take the first step, the man spoke. A short sentence, low voice. "When was the last time you ate?" The boy didn't answer. He just widened his eyes. His chest rose and fell hard. The man took a deep breath, stared at the ground for 2 seconds, and then, without saying anything else, turned and walked back into the restaurant. The boy stayed there, paralyzed, his whole body on alert as if the ground might collapse at any moment. But the man didn't go back to his table. He went straight to the counter, called the manager, pointed discreetly at the boy outside, and at that moment, something started happening inside. A movement, an exchange of glances among the staff. People at the tables began to notice. But what exactly had the man said? What was he planning? The boy had no idea. And what happened next? No one on that street would forget anytime soon. The boy remained still on the sidewalk, his eyes fixed on the restaurant interior. His hands trembled more from nerves than from the cold now. His chest rose and fell in quick waves as if he was about to run. But his legs didn't obey. Inside, the man in the jacket spoke quietly with the manager, pointing discreetly at the door. The manager shook his head, clearly uncomfortable, glancing now and then towards the boy outside. 2 waiters approached, whispering, exchanging looks with each other. A customer at the next table put down her phone and started paying attention too. The atmosphere, which until a few minutes ago had been festive, was now tense, as if everyone felt that something off-script was about to happen. The boy stepped a little away from the window, retreating toward the nearest lamppost. He stayed half hidden in the shadow as he always did when the street police appeared. But this time, no matter how much instinct screamed for him to run, something kept him there. The restaurant doors opened again. It wasn't the man in the jacket who came out. It was the manager, He stopped on the sidewalk with a strange expression on his face, neither anger nor sympathy, more like a mix of obligation with embarrassment. "Boy," his voice came out low, emotionless. "Come here for a minute." The boy froze, looked around as if expecting a trap. "Come on," insisted the manager, making a hand gesture, calling him. His breath caught in his throat. His legs hesitated, but obeyed. Each step felt like a challenge. He crossed the distance between the lamppost and the restaurant entrance with his heart racing, eyes on the ground. Without the courage to look up, the manager opened the door and signaled for him to enter. The boy took the first step inside. The heat hit his face like a punch. The smell of food, which before came in soft waves through the street, now filled his entire lungs. For a second, he felt dizzy. The waiter from earlier gave him a look of disdain but said nothing. The man in the jacket stood by the counter waiting. He held a small plate covered with a white napkin. He didn't say a word, just extended the plate toward the boy. The boy looked at the object as if it were a trap about to snap. His hands hesitated before taking it. The weight of the plate, the heat coming from it, everything felt unreal. With trembling fingers, the boy lifted the napkin. There rested a double cheeseburger, with melted cheese dripping from the sides, accompanied by a generous portion of still steaming fries. His eyes filled with tears before the first bite. But before he could bring the burger to his mouth, the manager cleared his throat. "Eat fast. You can't stay here long." The boy obeyed. He began devouring the food like a starving animal, not caring who was watching. People at the tables observed with varied expressions, some with pity, others with visible discomfort. The man in the jacket remained there standing, watching everything. And then, without warning, he took a folded bill from his pocket and discreetly placed it in the outer pocket of the boy's backpack. The boy noticed the movement but didn't have the courage to react. He kept eating, swallowing without chewing properly. But before he could finish, another waiter appeared beside him. "That's enough, right?" said the waiter in a low but firm voice. "Time to go." The boy still tried to take another bite but was practically pushed outside. Back on the cold sidewalk with the burger in his hands, the boy looked inside. The man in the jacket was no longer at the counter. He had vanished. His heart beat faster. His eyes swept the sidewalks, the corners, the parked cars. Nothing. The man had disappeared as if he had never been there. But when he opened his backpack to store the rest of the food, he found the folded bill. It was a $50 bill. He looked both ways down the street, still not understanding, still not believing. The wind blew stronger, and suddenly, a shout from another corner of the street. "Hey, kid!" It was a deep, unfamiliar voice. The boy turned, startled, and there, standing across the street, leaning against a black car with dark windows, was the same man, with an even more serious look, waving for him to come closer. His body froze instantly. His hand squeezed the $50 bill so tightly that his fingers turned white. His head turned from side to side, searching for an escape route. But the street was practically empty. Only the man, and the black car parked by the curb. The passenger side window was slightly open, and for a moment the boy had the impression of seeing someone inside the car, in the shadow. But he couldn't make out who it was. The man signaled again, a quick, almost imperceptible gesture like someone calling a stray dog. There was no smile, no kindness in his eyes, just that enigmatic air between disinterest and hidden intention. The boy took a step back. The man advanced 2 steps forward. The boy turned around and started walking fast, almost running, feeling the wet snow seeping through the holes in his sneakers. But before he could turn the corner, the man's voice sounded behind him, deep and firm. "If you keep running, you'll miss the only chance you have today." The boy stopped instantly. His chest was heaving. His mind screamed to run, but his legs betrayed him. He turned slowly, looking at the man again. The stranger crossed the street with long strides, stopped 2 meters away. The silence between them seemed to freeze time. "Relax," said the man, in a lower voice this time. "I don't want to hurt you." The boy remained silent, but his eyes were more alert than ever. The man pulled a wallet from the inside pocket of his jacket, not to show money, not to offer anything. He just opened it, took out a simple card, and extended it. "If you want to eat properly and again," he said, handing over the card. Go to this address tomorrow. Say I sent you." The boy hesitated but took the card carefully, like someone touching a wild animal. He read quickly. "Dixon's Auto Service, West Loop, Chicago." A mechanic shop? What kind of place was that? Why would a man in a suit from a luxury restaurant be involved with a garage? When he looked up, the man was already getting into the black car. The door slammed shut. The engine started immediately. The headlights lit up the sidewalk for a second. The car drove off. The boy stood there, frozen, with the card in one hand and the $50 bill in the other. His mind spun in circles. Was it a trap? Does he really want to help? Or is it some kind of trick? A mechanic shop? Why? Without an answer, he put the card in his pants pocket and hurried his steps, disappearing among the alleys. That night he slept behind a dumpster near Clinton Station, with his backpack under his head and his eyes open most of the time. But for the first time in weeks, he slept with money in his pocket, and for the first time, with the feeling that something big was about to happen. And for the first time, with the feeling that something big was about to happen. The day dawned with the sky covered in heavy clouds. The cold wind blew through the alleys as if trying to drain the little strength the boy still had in his body. He rubbed his eyes, chasing away the bad sleep, and sat there with his back against the damp brick wall. The card was still in his hands. His small, cracked fingers from the cold ran over the printed name, Dixon's Auto Service, West Loop, Chicago. He looked at that piece of paper as if it were a map, but not knowing if the path led to a better place or just another dead end. The memories of the previous night mixed with the fear of the unknown. The last time someone had offered him something, it had been an empty promise from a stranger at the train station. He ended up waking up without his shoes and with a cut on his eyebrow. Life on the street taught quickly to distrust everything. But now, there was something different. The way the man had looked at him, without pity, but also without that disgust that everyone else showed. A direct, firm look, as if saying, "I see you." The boy stood up slowly, folded the card carefully and put it in his pants pocket. He felt his stomach growl. Hunger was a constant presence, almost like a second skin. He took a deep breath and started walking. The way to West Loop was long. His legs hurt with every step. The light snow fell lazily, melting as soon as it touched the ground. He passed by storefronts of closed shops, by people who barely noticed him, by others who looked at him with that same usual look, quick and afraid of getting involved. The garage building was old, with peeling paint and a crooked sign. The smell of burnt oil and rusty iron seemed the same he felt on his clothes when he slept near the train tracks. He stopped on the sidewalk. For long seconds, he just stared. His heart raced, his hands sweaty even in the cold. He thought about turning back, thought about running, thought about forgetting everything, but something inside him, a weak, almost faded voice, told him to try. He pushed the door. The sound of an old bell echoed. Inside, the warmth of the place embraced him unexpectedly. Men in overalls talked loudly. A radio played an old song. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with gasoline. The boy stood at the door, motionless, until one of the mechanics, a chubby man with an unshaven beard and an easy smile, noticed him. "Hey champ, you lost?" the man asked, wiping his hands on a dirty cloth. The boy pulled the card from his pocket with trembling fingers and held it out. The man took it, read it, and gave a crooked smile. "Ah, so Mr. Walker sent you, huh?" Mr. Walker? The name sounded strange in his mouth, but full of something he couldn't explain. The mechanic gestured for him to follow. As they walked through the shop, the boy observed everything carefully. The tools hanging on the walls, the dismantled cars, the men laughing at jokes he didn't understand. And for a second, he felt a strange desire to belong to a place like that. They stopped in front of a door at the back. The mechanic knocked twice before pushing it open. And inside, sitting behind a messy desk, was the man from the night before, without the jacket, without formalities, just wearing a worn-out t-shirt and a tired expression, but still with that gaze. That pierced through. Walker slowly looked up. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said with a voice mixing irony and relief. The boy didn't answer, just stood there, as if ready to run at any second. Walker stood up, walked to a wooden cabinet, opened it, and took out a brown paper bag. "There's a sandwich, an apple, and a juice box in here," he said, placing it on the table. "Not a feast, but better than trash. The boy remained still. Come on, before it gets cold. His legs finally obeyed. He approached, took the bag, and sat on a wooden bench in the corner of the room. The first bite came quickly, the second with desperation, the third with tears falling down. Walker just watched, saying nothing. After a few minutes, the boy dared to look at him. Walker gave a half smile, the first since they had met. I don't want to know your name. Not for now. And I'm not going to give you a hero speech, okay? He said, in a low but firm voice. I'll just tell you one thing. I know exactly what it's like to be on the other side of the glass. I've been there. And if you want, you can stop watching life from the window. The boy felt a lump in his throat. For a long time, no one had offered more than a piece of stale bread. No one had looked him in the eyes with truth. That room, that smell of oil, that man in a worn-out t-shirt. Everything seemed so far from the misery of the previous night. And yet, everything felt so close to what he had always dreamed of. The boy finished the last piece of the sandwich as if it were the best food of his life. He stayed there for a while with his hands resting on his thighs, staring at the floor, breathing unevenly like someone trying to understand what had just happened. The hunger had given him a break, but the emptiness, that other kind of emptiness, that was still there. Walker remained leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching the boy as if solving a puzzle. There was no rush in his gaze. It was as if he knew that every second of silence was necessary. You don't need to thank me, Walker said in a low voice, almost like a thought spoken aloud. And you don't need to trust me. Not yet. The boy slowly raised his eyes, his lips still dirty with breadcrumbs. I just wanted to eat, he replied with a sincerity that made Walker pause for a moment. The two remained silent for a few more seconds. The sound of tools in the shop in the background was like a reminder that the world kept spinning, even when someone's life seemed stuck. Walker walked over to the table, picked up a coffee cup, and took a sip. You know, when I was your age, he began, stirring the coffee with a plastic spoon. I also spent nights wandering the streets, stole a lot of food from dumpsters, slept in subway stations under bridges. I was afraid of everything and everyone. The boy remained quiet, but his eyes were more open now. One day, someone did for me exactly what I'm doing for you today. Walker gave a half smile. They didn't ask my name, didn't make promises, just gave me a choice. The boy squeezed his own knee with his fingers. Walker continued, I'm not here to save you. I'm no hero. But if you want, you can come back here tomorrow. Not to eat for free, but to help. Wash some parts, sweep the floor. Simple things, nothing free, got it? The boy nodded with a small head movement. Walker extended his hand, offering a metal key. There's an old room in the back of the shop. It's not comfortable, but at least it has a roof and a blanket. The boy looked at the key as if it were a sacred object. The tears came again, but he turned his face, embarrassed, quickly wiping them with the sleeve of his jacket. Walker pretended not to notice. Go on, rest. Tomorrow we'll talk. The boy stood up, took the key carefully, like holding something fragile. Before leaving the room, he stopped at the door, turned around, eyes teary, but with a small, different glow, the beginning of hope. Thank you, he whispered. Walker just nodded, saying nothing. Upon reaching the back room, the boy saw a thin mattress leaning against the wall, an old but clean blanket, and a small yellow lamp hanging from the ceiling. He curled up there, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and for the first time in a very, very long time, he slept without fear of being woken up in the middle of the night by someone kicking his leg or yelling at him to leave. Sleep came quickly, but the thoughts, those stayed. As his eyes closed, a single question ran through his mind. Why did that man do this for me? Outside, the snow started falling again, and inside the room, the boy slept, with a lighter heart, but still with the weight of not knowing what the next day would bring. The next day arrived with an even sharper cold. The boy woke up before the first ray of sun crossed the small window in the back room. His whole body ached, as if every muscle was remembering the night sleeping on the city's frozen ground. For a moment he remained lying down, just staring at the stained ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of engines and tools already starting to work in the shop. The smell of oil, gasoline, and strong coffee filled the air. But, as strange as it seemed, that was the best smell he had felt in weeks. He got up slowly, his bare feet touching the cold floor, folded the blanket carefully, as if it were something precious, and arranged the mattress as neatly as he could. In the hallway, the sound of male voices mixed with laughter made him hesitate. The fear of being kicked out, of being reminded that he was still just a street kid, came back like an automatic reflex. He took a deep breath and left the room. Walker was leaning against one of the cars, talking to another mechanic, but upon noticing the boy, he interrupted the conversation and just pointed with his chin towards a bucket full of water and a pile of old cloths. "Start by cleaning that corner," he said without taking his eyes off an open engine. The boy didn't answer. He walked over to the bucket, grabbed a cloth, and began scrubbing the dirty floor with almost desperate dedication. Each movement was quick, almost as if he feared that if he stopped, someone would send him away. As he cleaned, he felt the discreet glances of the other men in the shop. No one laughed at him. No one made jokes, but they all seemed to understand, somehow, what he was carrying on his shoulders. Hours passed. His hands turned red, his knees hurt, but the boy kept going. When he finished one corner, he moved to the next, and then the next, as if cleaning that floor was, somehow, cleaning his own story. At noon, one of the mechanics appeared beside him with a plate of rice and beans, grilled chicken, and a small bottle of water. "Eat up," the man said, leaving the plate on a toolbox. The boy hesitated for a second, but hunger won. He sat on the floor right there and devoured everything in minutes. Then he went back to work without anyone needing to ask. By late afternoon, when the shop's activity started to slow down, Walker approached. "Come with me," he said, his voice still firm, but less distant. The two entered the office room. Walker sat behind the desk, rested his elbows, and clasped his hands together. "I want to ask you something," he began, looking the boy in the eyes. "Do you have anyone? Any place to go back to?" The answer came as a barely audible whisper. "No." Walker nodded as if he already knew. "And if I tell you that, maybe I can find something better than an old mattress for you?" The boy looked at him with a mix of hope and fear. "But there's one condition," Walker continued. "You need to want it. You need to choose to stay. And," he took a deep breath, "you need to promise that you'll try, even on the bad days." The boy swallowed hard. The fear of getting attached, the fear of getting his hopes up, the fear of hearing another, "I changed my mind," all that tightened his chest. But, even with a locked throat, he managed to nod. "Yes." Walker gave a half smile. "Tomorrow, I'm taking you somewhere," he said, grabbing a piece of paper and scribbling an address. "It's 2 blocks from here. It's a shelter, nothing fancy, but it has a real bed, food, and people who understand what it's like to start over." The boy took the paper as if it were a winning lottery ticket. Inside, the fear still lived there, but this time, there was something new growing along with it. Something he had almost forgotten how it felt. Called hope. Walker stood up, walked to the door, turned and said, "Go rest. Tomorrow, the rest of your life begins." The boy with teary eyes just smiled. A shy smile, almost imperceptible, but genuine. As he walked back to the back room, for the first time in a long time, he felt he didn't need to run anymore, and that maybe, just maybe, that man, that place, and that moment were the beginning of everything he had always wanted, but never had the courage to believe. And now I want to know from you, if you were in Walker's place, what would you have done? What was the most remarkable act of kindness someone has done for you, or that you've done for someone? I'll be watching the answers because, who knows, your story might become the next video here on the channel.